Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council. It is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to consider and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. Actions taken tonight on conditional use permits are final, unless appealed to the City Council in writing within 5 days. And any actions taken tonight on final development plans, design review, or minor amendments are final. Any recommendations made on preliminary subdivision plan requests tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the third council meeting of this month, or at the first council meeting of next month if associated with a rezoning or major amendment. Any recommendations made on zoning requests, major amendments, future land use amendments, or ordinance amendments tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the first council meeting of next month. Council meetings are held at 7 p.m. here in the Carnegie Town Hall and are televised. The Planning Commission will first approve the consent agenda and then the regular agenda. In order to place certain non-controversial items on the Commission's consent agenda, planning staff in the Planning Commission apply the following criteria. First, the request conforms with the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Second, planning staff recommends approval of the request. Third, there are no audience members present or written comments received in opposition to the request. And fourth, the application meets all conditions and requirements of the Sioux Falls zoning ordinance. For the regular agenda, the following normal public hearing procedure will be followed for each item. By first requesting planning staff to present a brief report on that item. Second, the petitioner or representative will be requested to come forward to make a statement or answer questions. After the petitioner has spoken, anyone from the audience who wishes to address the agenda item shall be recognized. Then, the Planning Commission will discuss the matter further and take appropriate action. We ask that anyone addressing the Planning Commission move to the podium microphone, identify themselves for the record. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask you that you please either turn off or silence your electronic devices. This meeting is being televised on Channel 16 and will be rebroadcast Saturday at 10 a.m., Tuesday at 7 p.m., and Wednesday at 1 o'clock a.m. Thank you for your cooperation.
Good evening. Welcome to Carnegie Town Hall. I call to order this regular meeting of the City Planning Commission. We will start with the consent agenda items. Number 1 would be approval of the October 5th, 2011 minutes of the regular meeting. 2 would be plats. 3 would be a rezone from the C2 General Commercial District to the RA2 Residential District for allowed uses at 611 South Dakota Avenue. 4 would be a conditional use permit in the C3 Central Business District to allow an on-sale alcohol establishment at 323 South Phillips Avenue. 5 would be a conditional use permit in the C2 General Commercial District to allow motor vehicle sales, repairs, and service at 3809 East 10th. 6, conditional use permit in the C3 Central Business District to allow residential uses on the first floor at 522 North Main Avenue. 7 would be a preliminary subdivision plan in the AG Agriculture District and the RS2 Residential for the Shadow Valley Addition to develop single-family residential lots at West 77th Street and Hughes Avenue. 8 would be a minor amendment to Subarea C of the Prairie Meadows Plan Development District to allow a height of 17 feet and 8 feet wide at 6901 South Minnesota Avenue. Are there any objections from the audience to any of the items listed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there any objections from the Planning Commission members to any item listed on the consent agenda? I would request a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved. If you were here and your item was on the consent agenda, you are excused unless you would like to stay and watch the rest of the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to approve the regular agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Regular agenda is approved. We will start with staff. Will give us a report on item number 9.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Dave Lublin, and I'll be representing planning staff on this and a couple of additional items tonight. Item number 9 is a major amendment to Subarea B of the Prairie Hills North Plan Development District to allow a truck wash as an allowed use throughout the entire subarea. The applicant is requesting approval of this major amendment in order to proceed through the development process for a truck wash on the east side of Granite Lane. The general location of the site is on the northeast corner of West 60th Street North and Granite Lane, and it encompasses just under 6 acres of property. As I noted, the existing zoning is Subarea B of the Prairie Hills North Plan Development District and is designated under the Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan as a regional employment center. As far as the compatibility ratings go, we've assigned the lowest compatibility rating on the north, south, and east compatibility rating of 4, which generally means that the use is appropriate, but should be considered. There should be some consideration to transitions and buffers involved. To give you a history of the zoning purpose and history, the Prairie Hills North Plan Development District was created in November of 1994 by the Minnehaha County Commission to allow residential, commercial, and office uses. The land area encompassed by the Plan Development District was annexed into the City of Sioux Falls in June of 1998. Subsequently, a major amendment revised subarea locations, boundaries, and regulations and was approved by the City Council in 1999 to allow a truck stop and associated land uses. Other applications associated with the Flying J Travel Plaza have been received and approved since the initial amendment. In August of 2009, the City Council denied a major amendment to Subarea B that would have allowed a truck wash and service station after the Planning Commission had recommended approval. No additional changes or applications have been received since that time. Won't go too much into the site description and concept plan, primarily because if this were to be approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council, this does need to have a final development plan approved by this body. And that's the opportunity for us to go through those things. To go through our land use and comprehensive plan analysis, the Sioux Falls 2035 comprehensive plan denotes this area as a regional employment center transitioning to light industrial further east and south. A proposed truck wash along the east side of Granite Lane does fit within the character of the 60th Street North and the parameters of the comprehensive plan. However, in this case, an existing residential subdivision lies just over 300 feet to the north of the subject property. This proximity to residential uses raises transitional concerns and issues of aesthetic screening and noise abatement. The applicant has provided plans that show landscaping of the adjacent lot to the north of the subject property to provide screening of the site and also provided a spec sheet detailing noise levels at certain distances from the bay and equipment rooms. The applicant has conducted a neighborhood meeting and provided a list of attendees to the planning office. The applicant should be prepared to address the outcome of that meeting and items discussed there to this Planning Commission. As I noted, should the application be approved by the regulatory bodies, a final development plan will be required to be approved by the Planning Commission prior to the issuance of any building permits. When evaluating the appropriateness of land uses, specific standards can be considered either at the zoning hearing or the final development plan stage. Zoning standards should be considered as part of the application process. But because the application meets the intent of the Shape Sioux Falls Comprehensive Plan and requires additional public review by the Planning Commission for a final development plan, staff is recommending approval of the major amendment with the sub-area regulations as noted in your staff report. We have received public input on this, and one person has a presentation that he'd like to present to you once I'm concluded, and additional phone calls have been received as well, so I'm sure that there will be some input once I'm done. With that, that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Would there be any questions for David?
Just one quick question. In the drainage portion, it talks about a post-construction BMP. What is that?
A post-construction BMP just means that the drainage standard is that they have to retain all the stormwater flow on site at the rate that it discharged from before development. And so upon their development plans, they have to work with the engineering office on constructing a retention or detention basin then to accomplish that.
Thank you.
David, I've got a quick question. When I looked at this office site classification and the site classification, Steve had that drawing up there. It didn't look.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly conform. That's some of the allowed uses within the PD, but the actual PD regs are for sub-area B. The office portion that Steve just highlighted there is a different sub-area within the PD, so that part will not be allowed by the...
My question is, when they show trees and shrubbery in that office site classification, when they submit a final plan and it's presented to us that way, that's the way it then stays, or can they come back down the road, take that off that site, and down the road develop it as an office?
Well, that would depend upon how the plan is presented to you. I mean, there's, if they were to include both pieces then within their final development plan and it was stipulated that these things have to occur, that would be how you could guarantee that, and then they would have to come back before you to change that at that point. So.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yep.
David?
Any other questions for Dave?
Yeah, David, quick question. When it was presented in August of 2009, was there any opposition back then?
Yes, there was. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and there was opposition at both the Planning Commission and City Council meetings.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dave? If not, was the petitioner here?
Good evening. Brett Roman, 8313 Spice Hill Circle, also owner-operator of the Empire Car Wash here in Sioux Falls. As David just mentioned, we are hoping to expand our business and enter into the truck washing business. Right now there's only currently one commercial truck wash, which is located at the other truck stop on 90th and Cliff. Definite need associated with that. And so I've spent the last 2 years going through this and really kind of getting it all laid out, getting a great understanding of it before I brought it to you. I did hold the neighborhood meeting. Obviously, there are some concerns there, and basically what I took out of there, I realized that I'm going to have opposition to this thing, but what I took away was I wanted to address their concerns with our, if you look at this here, we originally were going to try and have it rezoned the whole section, including the office. But after we did the layout and site analysis or site plan on that thing, we realized that we could squeeze it down there and leave that buffer there and address the concerns. For the most part, I've heard the concerns were the noise associated with that. That's why I presented in your packet. Our truck wash itself, there will not be any of the noise concerns because, the decibel readings that you show come straight from the manufacturer, but they'll also be behind 4 concrete walls in a mechanical room. It's not a car wash. We don't have vacuums out there. We don't have blowers out there to dry off the trucks. It's a spot-free rinse, so when they go out, there's no blow drying and that noise. When the trucks enter in, the doors close, and so even that wash process won't be picked up from the noise perspective. But with that being said, I still wanted to make sure, I'm a local person. I know I have to deal with our neighbors, you know, for the rest of the time, and so I wanted to show that I am here to be a good neighbor. So we took that office space and pushed it out, pushed the truck wash back and left that all space to where it's still rated office, but we're going to make it kind of our green space. We're going to push the land, the dirt that we use, kind of build up a nice berm with evergreen trees, which will actually help with the noise that they currently have with the truck stop. That southerly wind bringing the noise of the trucks will actually help with the blockage of that noise. You know, the other complaint I heard a lot of was the trash that currently blows. It's kind of flat land out there, so if a bad wind comes, the trash will blow through and into their yards. You know, with that whole deal, that with that landscape, it'll capture most of that. And if most of you have probably been by or seen the Empire Car Wash, obviously we're in the cleaning business, so we need to make sure that everything around us is clean. You know, even at the car wash, we walk that parking lot every day, clean it up, make sure that it's spotless as we go forward. No different from that. So we'll be the ones picking up that trash associated with that. You know, it's a 2-bay, potentially a 3-bay. We're still kind of laying it out, but it's going to be a precast concrete. If you've been out there by J&L, our building will look similar to that. It's all precast, but it's going to have a brick facade. It's going to, you know, no different than the Empire Car Wash. It's a nice building. It's just going to have the doors where the trucks enter. So, you know, I think I tried to address all their concerns as far as the noise, the trash. You know, another concern that may be addressed is we're not doing a washout. I'm not doing service type of work to any of the vehicles. The washout, what I mean by is agricultural washout. We will wash agricultural trucks, no different than I wash a pickup truck, but it's only an exterior wash. Anything that comes off, we actually have a reclaim system associated with it. And to make it easy, that mud that comes off or anything that comes off the vehicles actually goes into a holding pit, and then the water separates it out. But there's an ozone system in there too that will actually suppress any of that smell that is associated with, no different than when I get a pickup truck from the farms there. I mean, we have it there, but if you've been to our car wash, you don't have that smell because of that. And then on a as needed basis, we call a septic company to come and pull that out of that holding pit, and it's, you know, 6 foot by 8 foot deep. And so I think that was the 3 major concerns that I heard associated with this. You know, as far as traffic flow goes, it's going to be a low impact to the people around, because really all I'm doing is servicing the vehicles that are there. You know, we have it as, if you can go back, Steve, to the kind of the layout. It's directly across the street from where the trucks exit out of Flying J, would actually be able to enter into a field of, or approach right across the street and come in from that direction. So everything will be there. Our building is shifted so that the trucks sitting outside waiting will actually have the building blocking their noise. But if you've ever been to the Blue Beacon, which is the other truck wash in town, they shut their vehicles off simply because diesel is very expensive. So we're not going to add any noise that isn't currently there, but everything that we're trying to do is to show that we're going to be a good neighbor associated with this thing. Like I said, we're going to keep it clean. It's going to be a very nice building, and you know, hopefully we can, at the end of this thing, be show them that we're really good neighbors. I think you got in your packet late, I had a couple of people that came in that had to send letters in because they couldn't make it. One being, if you look at the closest house to our development, is actually a guy that's, Dwayne is completely in favor of this, and he wrote a little letter for us saying that he was 100% behind it. He would be the closest one. You know, he addressed in our neighborhood meeting, he actually had addressed that, you know, the trash that he's ever found wasn't from the Flying J itself. The noise level actually is more from, you know, your air traffic. There's a direct flight pattern over the top of that, as well as, you know, you have the two major interstates to the north and to the west of this. So, you know, I just think it's a great fit. There's a lot of trucks there. There's a lot of need. We have the service across the street with I-State, and if you look at any major truck stop, there's only three things that usually come in there: the truck stop, a truck wash, and a service place, and that would kind of capture all the needs that those folks have. So, I do have Paul Reynolds with me. He's from RCM. If you had any construction type questions, he can answer those as well. Or if you have any other questions, or questions for me, I should say.
Brent, thank you. Would there be any questions of Brent Meredith?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Brett, a couple things. I like the fact that you're talking about the landscaping on the north end as both a sound and visual barrier. I think that's going to be important. The other question, I just want to confirm that when the trucks enter from the south, they're brought into the truck wash, the doors close, and everything happens inside the building?
That's correct. Yep.
All your equipment is under roof?
Yes.
And then, did you I think you mentioned a neighborhood meeting?
Yeah.
Did you actually host a neighborhood meeting, and you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. We had 23 folks, businesses and residents attend the meeting, and you know, I think obviously all of them were there with some okay with it from the start, but you know, most reluctant on this. Obviously, it has come before the commission and council before. We have a different layout and you know, building associated with this. We also don't have some of the service things that are tied to this that could add more things to it. But you know, at the end of the day, like I said, on these types of projects, you're always going to have opposition. But I had a lot that actually came up to me and said that initially they didn't want anything to do with it, but knowing that it's a local person who already runs a successful business, they attended at go to my car wash now, know that we do a good job, and at the end of the day, they said, you know, it could be worse. I mean, it's rated C4. I could put in, you know, a bar, off-sale liquor. There's several things that could actually add to the traffic flow and the congestion that's out there on 60th Street. Really, all I'm doing is making sure, you know, that the vehicles that are already there can have the service provided. You know, I know it probably doesn't pertain here, but we're gonna have 65 to 75 jobs that are created out of this thing, and obviously sales tax revenue associated with that to the city. So, you know, I understand people may look at this thing as it's a truck wash, as a filthy thing. You know, I'm kind of offended by that, because it is my business, and you know, people associate it as a you know, dirty, but at the end of the day, we're exactly opposite of that. You know, we have to have a clean presence in order for them to continue to come to us. So I truly you know, believe that we are going to be a great neighbor. I understand that they don't want to have it, but if this does pass and once we get it up and running, I think they really will see that I'm not out to be a bad neighbor.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Brent? Brent, just in my mind, when you say you're going to employ 50 to 75 people, this would be an operation that runs 24 hours a day.
Yep.
And is this a fully automated?
It's going to be a we're going to actually, a couple of different bays. We're going to have if you've been to the full service car washes, you know, with the cloth, we're going to semi-automate, and most of the truck drivers like don't like the touch on their tractor itself. So what I mean by semi-automated is they're on rails, and it's just a cloth system, just like at the car wash, that goes down your vehicle and around the back side. It will do the trailer as we're hand washing the tractor itself. And then the other one will just be, you get some of those that are odd-shaped trucks that wouldn't necessarily work for. We'll redirect them into the second bay, which is kind of a high-pressure wash system. That's kind of like your touchless car washes at a gas station, but with higher pressure water, obviously. And then hand wash those as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Brent? Brent, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
Yes, I would.
If you'd be good enough just to identify yourself.
I'm, it's all right. It's all right. I feel more comfortable standing up here. Thank you. I know it seems strange, but there's a reason. I'm John Lavender. I live at 5409 North Castle. Actually, if you were careful, you would see my house is right next to Mr. Kuka's house, Dwayne Kuka. Actually, the closest house to the development is a rental unit that lies immediately south of Mr. Kuka's house. What I came to do, and of course I'm in opposition to this, but we have 28 of the 41 possible homes out there, family households, have signed a petition in opposition to this. And we would have more names, but there's people on vacation, there's people traveling, there's people working, and I have gone to a lot of work to get these 28 names. And I want to submit that to you. What I want to do, I developed a PowerPoint presentation because I can look at certain historical developments that have occurred in Sioux Falls, and I would like you to compare what your historical thinking was in relationship to what we have going on out at Skyline Heights. The very first slide that I have here is the greater area around the washout that's actually on 1000 East 54th Street in Sioux Falls off of Cliff Avenue. And true, it is a washout. It is not a truck wash. But what I want to note on this slide, and I don't have a pointer here. I don't know if you have a pointer. There's a buffer of truck-type uses and functions around this wash. It does not directly come in contact with a residence. Go to the next slide. Going in a little closer, you can see immediately those aren't residences that are around that wash. Now the beacon, next one, that's a ground shot of it because I like to take ground shots. But you can see it isn't messy, even if it is a truck wash. Next slide. Thanks. This is the Beacon car truck wash. And again, I might point to you that this is a truck, you know, in land use and existing zoning. Generally, what happens over time, people try to keep industrial with industrial and residential with residential. Again, you see where this facility exists, that it is not in or adjacent to a residential area. And thankfully, over time, for lots and lots of reasons, the City Council, the Planning Commission, saw to it that they would maintain this type of, you might call it sector-type development. Go to the next. In a little closer, you can take a look at, again, immediately around it, are non-residential uses. They benefit from the buffer of I-90 above, and it's not consistent with a residential area. Next, please. Ground shot, but next ground shot. I didn't know how these were going to show on here. People say that they turn the trucks off, and I wish I would have had an infrared here to take this ground shot. Sometimes they turn the trucks off, sometimes they don't turn the trucks off. And it is the noise associated with the trucks coming to the wash, not what's inside the wash. Neither here nor there. Next one. This is, the fellow that wants to develop this has the Empire Car Wash on 1221 West 41st Street. And it is true he has an attractive building. He has a vacant lot behind him, and across the street, it's one of my favorite little strip centers because I go to PC Gold quite often. And again, you are not immediately abutted to a residential area. Thankfully, to the decision-making of very wise city council and planning commission members over many, many years. Next shot. That's a ground shot. Didn't come out. Actually, they were working on the street. I sent my wife out to take this picture, and she's still alive. Next. This is a shot of where we are at Skyline Heights, and it shows the approximate location because I didn't have the digitized coordinates of the property exactly in question. One very important point. A year ago, the truck wash that was being talked about was down at the corner, northeast quadrant of Granite Lane and 60th Street North. Now, we have even come closer to the residential units. Next slide. Just to give you a little closer in look at, we're right there. And I'm hoping the wisdom of the past ages will continue into the future. Next shot, ground shot. This is, oh wait, went too far. This shot is actually, again, my wife got out because trucks are coming and going. They take the picture towards our subdivision from, it's just to the edge of the major truck entrance and exit for the current, well, was the Flying J. You know, the 300 feet, the actual building to houses, it's not, but it looks like a great distance from here, you know? So that's that. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. It's many years since I've been to a planning commission meeting, since I ended my planning career in 1979. So you know I'm an old man. So,
John, that's
30 years for somewhere else.
Would there be any questions of John? John, I want to compliment you. That's a very nice package you put together for us.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
John, how far is your home now from the JNR, or the Flying J, excuse me?
It's probably 400 feet or so. I didn't digitize that distance either, but I am able to find that out.
I can't remember.
Kuka's house, my house, if I can see here, actually the Planning Commission's aerial has my house on it. The one on the very corner down there is a rental unit, then the next one is Dwayne Kuka's house, and the next one that's got the, you can't see it from here, the two little sheds out in back, that's my house, 5409. And I'm right there.
I see that. I guess the follow-up question then would be, I don't know how many years ago Flying J built there, but when Flying J finally got into operation, do you recall any increase in noise from before they built that truck stop compared to before they built the truck stop?
I've only lived here 3 years. My mother and father retired into Sioux Falls, lived on Kiwanis. Dad died here a couple of years ago. Mom's still going. And next door is my sister and brother-in-law. And when the house became available and I was about ready to retire from Super Value stores, I bought it.
So you haven't lived there?
So I haven't
before
lived
that
there.
was built. Okay.
And honestly, as far as noise goes, the worst noise we have out there, and I think you should know it, and it makes me feel so good in my heart, are those jet fighters. Because I am pro-American, and if that's a cost of living there, I love it. I love those fighter planes. So,
Thank you.
And they're loud.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Would there be anyone else here in the audience that'd like to address this issue?
Good evening. My name is Doug Van Santen. I run the business at 2901 West 60th Street North. I-State Truck Center, used to be Holcomb Freightliner. Just want to say I support Brett and what he's trying to accomplish. I think anytime you have a local businessman trying to grow a business, I think it's a great thing. I would also like to talk a little bit about trucks, and especially the new trucks. Thanks to our government over the last couple of years, our emissions have gone down to zero, to the tune, if you went and started one of our new trucks today, you could actually breathe out of the exhaust pipe. The air coming out of there is cleaner than what we're breathing in the city of Sioux Falls today. As far as noise, due to the new emissions and catalytic converters, no Jake brakes or any kind of exhaust modifications can ever be made. These trucks are as quiet as a pickup today. Normal life cycle of a first owner truck, new truck, is about 4 years or 600,000 miles. That truck will then go on to a second owner, not so much an over-the-road truck anymore. I think Brett is trying to address the over-the-road truckers. Therefore, the new trucks, I would say within 4 to 6 years, every truck in that truck stop will have a zero emissions, no noise, and closed crankcase breather, so you'll have no oil, no fumes, no noise out of there at all. So I welcome any of you guys if you want to see one of the new engines or new trucks. We have them at our facility. So I strongly support Brett, and I think any local business would be a great addition.
Thank you, Doug. Would anyone have a question of Doug? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would there be anyone else to address?
My name is Dan Foster. I live at 5509 North Castle Drive in Skyline Heights. I like Dwayne. I mean, I don't have a problem with Dwayne, but since he took the time to write a letter, I think it needs to be pointed out there are some fallacies there. As John already mentioned, first of all, he's not the closest house. His property does not adjoin the truck wash. He's the house in north. He mentioned the noise hasn't been a problem. I think there would be other residents who would disagree. I might point out that Dwayne is probably gone 3/4 of the time in his truck. So the noise, of course, would not be an issue with him. And since he drives, then he's not going to object to it as much. I also think I kind of question the comment about the meeting there that said several supported it. I would like to know how many supported it, because I was at the meeting, and the only one I know that supported it was Dwayne as far as the residents. I think there were some that felt sympathy from the business level, understood the desire to put the truck wash there, and understood, him wanting to create a business, but yet the feeling was that it wasn't the best thing as compatibility to our neighborhood. So when he says several, I think he didn't give a number, but I question that. Just to point out a few things that are being said that I don't think are quite true, and I think that should be considered in the big picture as well. I know that we have another representative, one of the development's going to speak also, but I think it needs to be said that while we're talking about various points of this truck wash, there's really a more important aspect of this, and that's the future development of the area around it. And the whole intent is to have it develop in a way that is compatible to our neighborhood, and this truck wash is not going to help things develop in that direction. And that's more of a big picture thing as we go down the road, not so much the immediate impact of that truck wash. And I think that's actually a greater concern than the truck wash itself, and I think that will be spoken to further. So, thank you.
Dan, wait just a second. Thank you for your comments. Would anyone have a question for Dan?
Mr. Chair, Dan, and maybe this is actually a question for staff, because in our packet we have a what must have been a reprint of what is a permitted use in sub-area B, and I assume that this proposed truck wash is in sub-area B, and I see as one of the allowed or permitted uses a truck stop. And does that mean that without having a hearing like this tonight, somebody could build a truck stop in that piece, in that parcel?
Truck stop or wash?
It says truck stop.
Truck stop.
Item J.
Yeah. Yep. That's correct. I mean, that what you're seeing in these regulations as they exist right now are what's been underlined. The text that's underlined is what you're considering.
Right,
so,
but the existing
so anything
PD allows a truck stop to be built where this truck wash is being proposed.
That's correct.
And so if somebody came along right now and bought that parcel of land, they could build a truck stop. The only thing they'd have to come before the Planning Commission for is a development plan.
That's correct.
Are you sure that's correct?
Yep. That is correct.
So I guess, my point is if somebody could already build a truck stop just like Flying J and replicate that where this truck wash is being proposed, a truck wash, if we hear the methodology that's being proposed, is probably a better neighbor than a potential truck stop.
Well, I would say that I don't think that there were a lot of meetings over the last several years before the truck stop came in there, and in fact the original location was moved and everything else because of input from our neighborhood, and I don't think another truck stop was in the plan or even in other discussions. And so I don't have the technical information in front of me, but I guarantee you if somebody wanted to build a truck stop, I think the whole neighborhood would be down here. So I'll just leave it.
But I'm just saying that the plan development already allows that, if our information is correct, along with an automobile service station, hotel, motel, public utility facility, campground, commercial rec facility, on-sale alcohol establishment. Those are all allowed on that piece of property without this hearing.
Since I'm not in the technical parts, I haven't studied it, I'm not prepared.
No, I understand. I'm just asking staff to clarify that because the Planning Commission's being asked to consider a truck wash, and the neighbors are saying it's not a good neighbor, but at the same time, you could end up with a truck stop.
That's correct, and just to clarify why that is sub-area B, which is what you're looking at with all of these allowed uses, it covers both the existing Flying J and this east portion of Granite Lane. So all of these uses are allowed on both the east and the west sides of Granite Lane.
How far does that go?
Well, where that's marked as office site classification, that's where there's a different sub-area D, and then that's for office only. Right.
But where it says C4.
Yep, that's all these uses that are listed in here.
And C4 goes how far in from Granite there then? It's just that small section right there. I might point out, sir, that you could not put a truck stop in that area, so it's not even an issue. It's not big enough. Thank you.
Would there be anyone else here that would like to address this issue?
Hi, my name is Jeff Stockert. I represent the 26 acres that are immediately to the east of the property that we're talking about here. And I would like to make, just before I get to my comments, I would like to make one comment about what you said there. I believe the reason that the truck stop is in there is that was all part of the process of getting the Flying J to this corner.
I don't know, I'm just saying that that's...
But I've got some research on that that I'll get to in just a minute in my comments. But personally, I'm a real estate developer. I bought the property. I'm a hotel developer primarily. We were going to put together, our plan is to put together a quality mixed-use development there, preferably hotel, restaurant, maybe some strip retail, bank, that sort of thing. When we bought the property, we obviously knew that it was encumbered with a truck use, that one piece of property was encumbered with the truck use, and it already was existing. The truck stop was there. We did not buy the property with the intention that property surrounding the Flying J or that would be adjacent to our property would subsequently be down zoned effectively to allow for a truck, another truck stop or a truck wash. So in 2007, we took our property, our 26 acres, we took it through a planned development process, and at the urging of the planning department, we had several meetings with the residents of Skyline Heights, and we worked through various issues. They were very tough. They knew what they wanted and they knew what they didn't want. We agreed to a planned development on our 26 acres that allowed for residential or office to buffer between us and their homes so that they wouldn't be up against commercial uses, and particularly up against this type of use. The city, the planning department at that time did a commendable job in negotiating the process, getting us through it to the point where it was acceptable to us and it was acceptable to the Skyline residents. I would like you all to think about whether or not because there's a truck wash or a truck stop there, that adding additional truck uses really enhances this interchange, this intersection, this parcel of property. It certainly wasn't our intent when we bought this property to be surrounded by other truck uses. And when you saw the pictures from Mr. Lavender, you know, that truck stop up on Cliff Avenue, it wasn't the last thing there. It was the first thing there. You can tell that by its location and what filled in around it. All sorts of truck uses. The next use in there is going to dictate, I believe, to a great degree what is going to happen next. I would like to point out that there was a community meeting. I represent 26 acres. I was not invited to that meeting. I was called. I didn't know about it until the next morning when residents of Skyline Heights, who I had developed a relationship with back in 2007 when we went through the PD process for our property, they called me and asked me why I wasn't there, was I aware, and what's going on. So I was not invited to that meeting. I reached out to Mr. Roman after I learned what was going on. As to why I wasn't invited, I don't know. Part of what I was told was that he couldn't reach me. There's two great big real estate signs out there with my name and telephone number on them. I think that speaks for itself. Something else that in 2009, when this went through, when this came, it got at the Planning Commission, and I've got some minutes from the City Council meeting. In fact, I've got transcript from the City Council meeting. Planner Hooper indicated at that time, when he asked the question by the City Council, was there opposition? And I'll get to that, but his answer was no, but the neighbors didn't, the surrounding property owners weren't aware of what the proposed use really was going to be. One of the issues that came up back then, I think you've probably all became aware of the fact that there's supposed to be a median placed from I-29 all the way over to Kiwanis. Okay, so an eastbound truck wanting to turn left-hand into Flying J will not be able to get there. When that median goes in, they will not be able to get there. They will have to go to Kiwanis, turn left at the stoplight, and unfortunately my plan development isn't up here, but it includes east-west street through my 26 acres. That would be the access. That would be the access to Flying J, or what would be 61st Street, which would parallel the south boundary of Skyline Heights. Okay, so now picture that. Approximately 400 trucks a day are going into the existing truck stop. They can no longer turn left to get in to Granite Drive. They've got to go down to Kiwanis, go north, come around, and then when they exit, if they're exiting to go west, they'll be able to leave Granite Lane and get out onto the freeway. If they're going east into Sioux Falls, they can't go east. There's a median there. They've got to come back around through either my property, assuming that I end up with a road in there, or 61st gets built. Every one of those trucks is going to go by immediately adjacent to Skyline Heights. Now, one of the issues that came up back in 2009, and I was out there today, and I saw this for myself. This lot is not that big, okay? And 2 bays. This truck wash, as I understand it, can handle 2 trucks, correct? Okay. 400 trucks a day going through there. You don't build a truck wash if you don't think you're going to have a whole lot of traffic. You got 2 bays. Where are all those trucks going to stack? When I drove in there today, there were 3 trucks parked on Granite Lane, stacked, waiting to get in to the truck stop. And by comparison, the size of that parcel compared to this parcel, there's no comparison. 3 trucks stacked on Granite Lane. The property to the north, the Quality Inn and Suites, it's been said to me by a representative from there that, well, we don't necessarily we wouldn't want a truck stop on our property because they own additional property there. But it's okay. These are now my words. We don't want it on our property, but my words, it's okay if it's next to your property. You know, that the neighbor doesn't want it as long as it's not on their property. I don't know what that says to you. But at the city council meeting where this project was voted down by the city council 8-1, 8-1 or 7-1, I don't remember how many councilmen there are, but one of the city commissioners asked the question, can you shed some light on the planning commission discussion on this and where that is at? It came to us as a recommendation. Planner Hooper answered that question. Again, during my introductory comments tonight, when the planning commission hearing was held, we did not have this degree of neighborhood input, and I again think it was because of the lack of knowledge of the surrounding property owners of what was being proposed. So, and I will do just a little bit of speculation tonight, but had there been this level of testimony, I would say 2 things potentially would have happened. That the planning commission would have said, we want you to go back and have a neighborhood meeting and see if you can work out the differences. And if that is not an option, then I believe that their recommendation would have been different. But maybe it's not appropriate for me to speculate. But again, the recommendation from the planning commission was without the neighborhood input that you are hearing tonight. So he went on to say that as you heard here, that they probably would not have passed it on to the city council. The final thing that I want to say to you is that at the last, in 2009, I don't know if the name Dave Husby, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He was I believe, I'm not sure if he still is, he was the sales, director of sales or vice president of sales at Holcomb. He stood up here, and I've got 2 pages of transcript that I've got copies I'd be happy to share with you. He was involved back in 1994. I'm going to try and paraphrase this. He stood up and said that in 1994, after 3 attempts to get a truck stop on this corner, he was hired as a consultant. He was a real estate professional in Sioux Falls at the time. He was hired as a consultant by Flying J. He helped them to get through the process. He talked about there was a number of transitional zonings put into place, including berms, trees, apartments, twin homes, light office uses, and some retail uses. And then he goes on to say, but I can tell you, based on the conversations that I had with the neighbors and Mr. Call, who was the owner, developer of the Flying J, had with the neighbors, we tried to put a plan together that would be the least possible objection that they might have to that end, and the list that you see in the permissible uses, nothing in there would have provided for an additional truck stop, a truck type of use other than the travel plaza. They were very specific about it. They were adamant about it, and so we tried to accommodate that in our discussions. At that time, I was a commercial real estate broker and a developer for Hague companies. I no longer do that. I no longer do that. The guy who retained me initially is a guy named Wendell Holcomb, and I'm now his vice president of sales across the street. So just so nobody thinks that I have a double-edged sword here, I'd love to have a truck wash across the street, or at least someplace close by for reasonable use. I don't believe this is. Mr. Holcomb doesn't believe this is, and I don't think the neighbors do, and I'm absolutely confident that your predecessors who weren't in this office but who were across the street on 9th, and the county commissioners at that time, because they were involved, would never have approved this change. That was the guy front and center in the process. They worked hard to get Flying J done on the condition that there would be no other truck uses here.
Thank you, Jeff. I don't want to hurry you, but we're going to limit testimony to 5 minutes. Can you wrap it up quickly?
Okay, yeah, and so we had one other councilman at that same meeting, city councilman at the August 2009 meeting, asking questions, and this city councilman, after hearing the testimony from Mr. Husby, saying that the process was we would get this truck stop in here and then there would be no other truck uses. This councilman, and I'm sorry I don't have his last name, said, I came into this thing thinking that I would be okay with it. Now that I've heard that testimony and I understand that there was an agreement between all of the parties that there would be one truck use, Flying J, I am opposed to it. At that point, the city council voted 8-1 against the project. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. Would anyone have any questions from Jeff?
Mr. Chair, Jeff, you're talking about the 60th Street study that's going on right now, and when you reference the median, I sat through some of those meetings too, and I understand that that's not final.
Yeah, I've been in plenty of those meetings with Shannon Austin and others, and while it's not final, the writing is on the wall, let's say it that way.
Well, that's not been my experience. And I also understood that it could be 5-10 years out before they finalize certain sections of that improvement plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the Planning Commission to believe that there may not be a median cut at Flying J, because that study has just begun and is certainly not cast in stone yet at this point in time.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions for Jeff? Jeff, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
Hi, my name is John Wright. I'm a neighbor. I live at 5601 North Castle Drive. I've lived at this house for 12 years. the speaker before me, he pretty much nailed it. I spent many moons and many meetings with neighbors, developers, and we have this pretty much, you know, nailed. The truck stop is kind of off the side, and it's kind of away from Skyline Heights. And the neighbors just don't want the trucks, you know, any closer. The guy talking about semis that don't smell and make noise, I live on the northwest corner, and when the traffic on the interstate quiets down, you can hear a roar of the truck stop trucks at night. They don't shut them off. And in the winter, when there's moisture in the air, you can smell the sulfur and stuff. So apparently these guys aren't going out and buying new trucks lately because that's still going on. And if you look at it there, it's just too close. You know, those people living there, you don't want, you know, semis right there, especially in a line. There's been many, many hours of discussion on this, and I think a lot of smart people spent a lot of time figuring this out. And they got the truck stop off the side, and this really makes me nervous.
John, thank you for your comments. Would there be any questions for John? Anyone have a... You're okay, John. Is there someone else who would like to...
Lonnie Entenman. I own the property at 2601 West 60th Street North, which is 16 acres of land right there in the corner of 60th Street and Kiwanis Avenue or Westport Avenue. And I think Brett would make a good neighbor. The property that he's looking at, the building that he's looking at, I think is a pretty sound building. I have a total concrete building too, and I know they are pretty soundproof. So I support the project.
Lon, could you point out on the map here where you're located? Steve's trying to find it. Where are you at, Steve? Okay, and you have an...
J&L Harley Davidson as well.
All right. And it was a Lon?
Lonnie.
Lonnie?
Yes.
Any questions for Lonnie? Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Dawn Osbos, Complete Real Estate. I am the owner's rep for Redstone Development, Redstone Village, which is just directly to the north. And I'm here to clarify the statement that was so kindly used. I said that we had someone call us about the property to the north to put a truck wash, and I said we could not sell and would not sell to a truck wash. We already have plans for a water park resort, and so being that they wanted to be close to Flying J, we couldn't do that. The other thing that I made a point on was I would rather work with a local business owner than have to try and find an owner such as Flying J to deal with when there are issues. So if Brett is going to be the owner, I know him very well. I trust what he says, and we are willing to work with Brett as long as there are stipulations on the look and feel and the final of his building and his requirements for setback and for buffer.
Don, thank you for the comments. Any questions for Don? Thank you.
I'm Marty Davidson. I live at 6108 North Romar Drive, and I've only lived there 3 years. My daughter and son-in-law have lived in the house next door for 15 years, so I've a little bit longer experience with them. But I just wanted to come in opposition to this zoning change. My concern is not that Mr. Roman has, I feel that he is a good local businessman, has a good business, obviously keeps it clean. I just really think this change to an industrial zoning is not what's appropriate in our neighborhood. Certainly retail, certainly different kinds of retail that have been in the plan, and residential are appropriate. I really feel that if this lot goes industrial, who knows what impact that will have on the rest of the zoning in that area towards Kiwanis along 60th and north of there. And if it, starts if letting one industrial use go in that area means that then more of that area could be then, another zoning could come along and change it to other industrial, whether it's light or even, heavier than light. But to look at it as an industrial area really would have the potential to negatively impact the property values in that whole subdevelopment of all that residential area. I also, in the plans that Mr. Roman had for the truck wash, it was very nice that to the north he had a lot of at least drawing of some kind of buffer. It looked like to the east there was almost nothing. And if there is other development coming up in that area that looks like there might be one row of trees or bushes or something, but that's pretty small. And I'm sure the impact and the waste and that kind of thing would be felt as much to the east as it would to the north. There certainly are winds coming from the west in that area, and pretty strong. And it's important that buffers are done. Sometimes, too, buffers are in plans and then don't quite end up there. So it's also, but this change to industrial from office, that is a very worrisome thing in that neighborhood, and I would really be opposed to that.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone have any questions of this lady?
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to clarify that this is not a rezone hearing. This is simply a plan development, and the petitioner is offering an amendment to add another use to what's already permitted. A truck stop, according to the information we have, is already a permitted use.
Truck stop.
Or filling station, gas station?
Yep. But a truck wash.
Car washes are already permitted.
Okay. My understanding is that this had to do with an industrial use. Okay.
No.
Or an industrial classification. Okay.
No.
Thank you, ma'am.
I misunderstood.
We've had a lot of testimony here tonight, some good testimony. I think everyone has had a chance to address this issue. That being said, I would look for commission action. Typically,
go ahead.
Typically, we'll ask for a motion and a second to give the commission a chance to discuss it before a vote is made.
Mr. Chair, for the sake of discussion, and because I believe, considering the uses that are already permitted, that the addition of a use G, truck wash, would be appropriate. So I'd be willing to make the motion to approve this major amendment.
Mr. Chair, I would second pretty much all of that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Would there be any discussion in regards to this issue? Everybody's got it clear in their mind?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a question of staff. Maybe she got this just a shade earlier. There's some decibel readings in here. Can you give us a little bit of a, what 80 decibels would be? It says the Bay Area has an 80 decibel reading at 4 foot high at 20
Comparison
feet.
chart is on your screen, which would be equivalent to a telephone dial tone as you held the phone up to your ear. I think it's important to note, though, as the applicant stated, that the decibel readings are from within the structure itself. And so those are not readings that are from the exterior of the structure. Those are interior to the structure.
Okay.
And just to point out that the 80 is equivalent to a telephone dial tone.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Would there be any other discussion? If not, we have a motion, we have a second. I would look for commission action. All in favor of the motion will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Let's see, where were we?
Number 10.
Item 10, David.
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the commission, I will give a staff report for both 10 and 11, given that they're associated items. And then
David, will that mean that we will vote once?
But you'll still have to vote
each
separately
one?
on each item, yep.
Have to vote separate.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item number 10 is a rezone from the AG Agricultural District to the RS2 Residential District, the RC Recreation Conservation District, and the S Institutional District. The applicant is proposing the rezoning in order to develop single-family residential lots along with the elementary school and middle school campus. Item number 11 is a preliminary subdivision plan for the Harrisburg School addition to be zoned RS2, as I just read, in order to develop residential, recreation, and educational land uses. The location of this site is at Southwestern Avenue and West 95th Street. The area and size is just over 73 acres. Existing zoning, as I noted, is AG agricultural, and the Sioux Falls designation is for residential uses. The abutting zoning and land uses to the north and to the west is a classification of 4, and to the south and east is county agricultural. The subject property was annexed into the City of Sioux Falls by the City Council in September of 2011. Upon annexation of adjacent lands, the land retains the zoning district it held while under county jurisdiction. In this case, the AG agricultural zoning is retained, and the land is proposed to be rezoned in order to allow these future land uses. The acreage that's proposed is just about 33.5 acres of RS2, 25 acres of RC, and just under 15 acres of S institutional. Again, the location is at Southwestern Avenue and West 95th Street. Each of the districts that are proposed has their own specific standards upon which the applicant will have to base landscaping, parking, and setbacks. The proposal to develop schools and associated recreation area fits within the parameters of the planning scope of the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Chapter 7 of Shape Facilities outlines the possible scenarios for school location and development and makes special note of the likely scenario of additional primary and middle schools for the Harrisburg School District within the city's growth area. As I noted, the rezoning is associated with the preliminary subdivision plan, which is item 11, and because the subject application meets the intent of the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan and provides necessary public facilities to serve the residential population, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning. And then just to highlight a couple more things in the preliminary subdivision staff report, we did want to note that the proposal is for 45 or 44 residential lots that would be along the north and west sides of the subject property. In the S Institutional District, which is on the east, adjacent to Southwestern Avenue, will be for the middle school site, and the RC Recreation Conservation Area will be for the drainage and detention and athletic fields. The applicant has provided the planning office and the engineering office with the information necessary to be able to take this application forward to the Planning Commission, and it offers coordination of current infrastructure and fosters efficient and orderly urban growth. We are recommending approval of the preliminary subdivision plan as well. That concludes Staff report, the applicant has held several neighborhood meetings in associated with this use in particular, and then additional ones because of the bond issue. And we have received some commentary from adjacent landowners or people within the area. Some of that has been provided to you. Other members are here to speak. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, David. Before you sit down, would there be any questions for David?
I just have a real quick question for David, Mr. Chair, and that is the reason why a middle school is institutional and an elementary school is not?
An elementary school is generally seen as fitting within the parameters of a neighborhood service type boundary. Middle school is a little bit more intense, and so we've looked for, in the past, as we look through what we've zoned some of the schools before, many of the middle school, junior high schools within the city are zoned S as well, along with the high schools.
Are they?
Yep.
Even though middle schoolers don't typically drive?
Typically, that's correct, yeah. Yep.
Hopefully don't drive.
Yep.
David, before you sit down, East 95th, what's the classification of that street?
That would be a minor collector, I believe. Major collector, excuse me.
Major collector?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions for David? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jim Holdback, Superintendent of the Harrisburg School District, and I had this idea that I'd tell you about how long of a process this has been for us, and then I just sat through another hour and saw that there are other people that have long processes. So, but for us, it's new. For us, buying new property for our schools has been relatively not been an issue as far as time, but this one has taken quite a bit of time. We needed to have something on the southern part of Sioux Falls to take off all the pressure that we're having on our two elementary schools up there, as well as the fact that our middle school in Harrisburg is filling up too fast. And I'm not here to talk about should we have the schools or not. I think our patrons last night made that very clear, that they understood that we do need those. But the location was very important to us to be able to get what we have already in Sioux Falls. We love the neighborhood school mentality that we have with Explorer and Journey, where kids can get to our schools quite easily. Bikes are lining our sidewalks. There's an easeability for kids to get to our schools. And yet we had in mind when we started this process that we would probably have an elementary school one place and a middle school another place. It didn't quite work out that way, and we had talked about putting them on a campus, but because of some of the things that we ran into early on with city ordinances and rules, we found that we needed to go into a campus situation. When we bought or put a purchase agreement together on our first parcel of land, there's 3 landowners here, we were looking at the west parcel of land and putting just an elementary school there. And being pretty novice to this, we thought that would probably be all right just to have the road that came in from the west, which is 95th Street, and then also a road coming down from the north, Quiet Oak Trail. The city right away said, you know, that's not going to be enough connectivity. You're going to need to have 95th Street go all the way over to Western. We found that our only solution to that would be to become a purchaser of more land. And so we went to the east parcel, the third, there's 3 parcels there, and we bought that parcel with the idea we could put a middle school there, and then it was our intention that just joining the two together through the middle parcel, which is a narrow parcel of land, that person may be able then to develop lots and so forth. They had no desire to do that. And what they wanted to do was sell everything north, and that curved road on the bottom is Future 100. They wanted to sell everything north and not get into the development business. Now we had more land than we needed. So what you see on the plan are houses. Well, we're not in the house business, trust me. We are seeing that with 70-some acres of land, that's more than we needed. So originally, that wasn't going to be the plan, but once it turned out that way, we had to figure out how can we get ourselves back down to the size that we need? And so we worked with the developer as to how could you lay out lots, how would that play out? And so that's why you see this. It's quite an odd-shaped area. Of course, sewerability is the big issue. It's on the south end of town, and that's why you see houses going down into that cul-de-sac and such. What we have now is a plan that's in front of you that I think matched up very well with the neighboring plans. We have a plan that connects with the developer to the west, 95th Street, then moves directly into this area. We have a plan that connects to the north with South Quiet Oak coming down. And we have a plan that meets the criteria of what Western allows us to have for exits near Highway 100, which means that we have to be pushed right up to basically the top of this property to be able to be far enough away from Highway 100. And of course, then we have Highway 100 as our southern border. We believe that this will be able to take care of the traffic needs. We understand the city's concerns. We complied with those. We believe that we've put in what is necessary for the kids to be able to get to and from, and parents to be able to get to and from. I will tell you this, in our school, our policy has been that we do not bus kids that are within the neighborhood. We try not to bus kids unless they have to cross a major road, such as an arterial road. And so we have no desire that our buses will be running into the nearby neighborhoods, either to the west or to the north, except you may see, just like we would do now, kids that ride the bus to high school down in Harrisburg would still be bused in those neighborhoods. But the elementary and the middle school kids would not be seeing buses through here. So with that, I just want to ask you to consider this. With this being such a long process, and it's drawn out for us for quite some time, we are at the point where we need to continue to be moving on this. We hope that you can make a decision tonight. We'd like to get this in front of the City Council. With building schools, it doesn't happen overnight. The design stage is happening right now, and for us to be backed up on whether or not that this is going to work for planning and zoning would really put us into a bind on having these schools up and ready to go in the year 2013. I would just end with this. The mention was a neighborhood meeting and our own meetings. We had a few questions at our own meetings. Probably the biggest question that came out on the schools dealt with how big the gym should be. Imagine that. But when we talked about this in front of the neighborhood meeting, we had one person have a negative comment, and that was, should you build a school or not? And really, we said that's really not what the meeting's for. We answered that question. But there, in my opinion of what took place in that meeting, I saw no negative response to us having that school there. And I think that probably is a little bit indicative in the fact that people understand you need to have schools, you need to have them where kids are, and this is a good location for Sioux Falls and for us. So with that, I'd stand by for questions.
Jim, thank you for your comments. Would there be any questions for Jim? You did a great job, and congratulations on the vote yesterday.
Thank you.
Would there be anyone else in the audience that would like to address this issue, item number 11? If not, I would look for commission action on item.
Mr. Chairman, for purposes of discussion, I move that we pass this particular petition.
We have a motion for approval of number 11. Am I on the wrong one, or should I be on 10?
You're on number 10.
I'm sorry. Let me back up. Would there be anyone in the audience that would like to address item number 10? If not, I would look for a motion on item number 10.
I think that's what I was just trying to say.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Would there be any discussion in regards to item number 10? Seeing none, all in favor of item number 10 will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Item number 10 passes. Now we'll go to item number 11. Jim, you've addressed both items. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address item number 11? If not, I would look for a motion on item number 11.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 11.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor will signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Item number 11 passes. Where am I here? The next item is item number 12. I will be excusing myself from this item. I would ask my friend Meredith Larson to come and chair this particular item.
Steve, are you ready for your staff report?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Steve Randall, representing planning staff on this item this evening. The project is Westwood Valley Townhomes, and previously you had seen this as an amendment to reduce front and rear yard setbacks because of the nature of the corridor, the west side corridor, was not located there anymore, so they were allowed to have frontage onto a future collector street, which meant that in order to develop the lots for the same density that they had before, we reduced the front and rear yard setbacks. This application is to reduce the side yard required setbacks for the same lots. And the lots are identified as Block 9, Westwood Valley Addition. It's about an 8.5 acre property. It will be future subdivision. It is currently subdivided. However, they'll have to re-subdivide in order to come up with a plan that matches what you see on the screen in front of you as a concept of property subdivision and development that a contractor is proposing to purchase from the property owner for development of the said townhomes. The applicant is proposing to sell the subject property to other builders who will construct attached townhomes subject to PD and RA1 district zoning regulations and with approved setback reductions from 25 to 20 in the front and rear yards, and if approved this evening, a reduction from 10 foot to 7 foot in the side yards. The underlying zoning district is RA1, which does require 10-foot setback for attached units on the end, but what I've indicated in your plan for the construction of the units is shown with attached double-car garages that the applicant is proposing to replat the subject property for up to 4 attached residential units on the lots as platted, and the concept plan indicates 4-plex attached units on lots fronting West Normal Trail on the east and Future Parkway on the west, and that the final development plan applications are required to show compatibility with the neighborhood and with the setback reductions as approved. So this will come back to you for further review. Because the subject application requires this final development plan application for review of site development plans and building design, and 7 foot is an adequate side yard setback for townhomes on a parkway, staff is recommending approval of the minor amendment with one condition: building permits for more than 2 attached units on one lot must show minimum lot areas of 2,400 square foot per unit if replatted. And that comment has to do with the interior lots, not the end lots. The end units usually have enough square footage. However, recently we've had some difficulty with interior lots, and just want to make sure we're covered on that. That concludes staff report. We've had no calls.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner here this evening?
I'm actually the contractor, Brady Hyde, from here in Sioux Falls.
Brady?
Yes.
Any additional comments to
none
staff
other
report?
than, I guess what you see there is what our intention is. The reason we're intending to take it from 10 to 7 is it allows us 2 additional units on that amongst those 4 buildings there. So if we leave it at 10, it provides for 12 as opposed to the 14 that you see. I might add that wrong. I apologize. I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but it does provide for 2 additional units for us with the reduced setbacks of 3 feet per lot.
Okay. Any questions for Brady? Guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address item number 12? Seeing none, I'd invite commission action on item 12.
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation of to approve item number 12 with the one stipulation.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of item number 12 signify by saying yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Item 12 is approved.
Thank you, Meredith. That was item 12. Item Erica. Item 13.
Thank you. Erica Beck with the Community Development Department. And for the purposes of the presentation, I'd like to request your permission to present item 13 and 14 together. It's for the creation of a tax increment finance district boundary and plan for District 12. They will require separate action, though, so take that into consideration, please. Just a little bit of background for you in regards to why the Planning Commission is reviewing this item. South Dakota Codified Law, Chapter 11-9 requires that the Planning Commission separately review and recommend approval for both the boundary of a TIF district as well as the plan for a TIF district. With respect to TIF 12, the proposed TIF 12, we are requesting your consideration on both the boundary and the plan. For the purposes of reviewing the boundary, we've titled the proposed district as TIF 12, and we've separated the boundary into 3 sub-areas that are located within the plan itself. And I'll refer to those just briefly here because I want to give you a sense of what's going to happen within each of those sub-area boundaries. So sub-area A will include the construction of a mixed-use building that we are referring to as the DeKalb Lofts, and that was actually a project that was approved tonight on the consent agenda. This project alone will add a minimum of roughly $815,000 in taxes to the district increment value over the life of the district itself. Sub-area B, those are properties that are located within the existing TIF 8. And again, it's the city's intent to dissolve TIF 8 if and when TIF 12 is approved by the City Council. The value to the district is estimated to be roughly $740,000 over the course of the district's life from that sub-area alone. Sub-area C consists of the remaining 12 properties, 3 that are under the city's ownership, 1 that is owned by a local faith-based organization, and the others that are privately owned. We propose to include these properties within the district so that improvements can be made in the future by working with those property owners on areas such as facade easements, streetscape enhancements, and additional public eligible projects. For the purposes of the plan, we are assuming that this sub-area will grow at a rate of 1.5% in valuation annually. Given this assumption, this sub-area will bring a minimum of $575,000 in growth to the district over the course of its designation. The costs to be reimbursed through this TIF are estimated to include such things as site preparation, so earthwork, demolition, utility relocation, facade improvements, legal fees, architectural engineering fees, any potential environmental remediation that needs to be covered, land acquisition, financing costs, and street improvements. The base value of the district is approximately $11 million, and the value at the end of the district is estimated to exceed $19 million. This will increase the tax base within the district by approximately $130,000 annually. Staff recommends approval of the proposed TIF because it complies with South Dakota codified law, the city's 2015 downtown plan, and the 2035 growth management plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Erica, fine job as usual.
Thank you.
Would there be any questions for Erica?
Erica, what would be the date on this TIF plan?
How long it will be projected to last?
The starting date.
Oh, starting date would be as soon as it is approved by the city council, and that 20-day period is met following that date. So potentially mid-December it would be effective and put into place.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions we can try to stump Erica with? Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Did you address both items?
Correct, 13 and 14.
13 and 14.
But they do require separate action.
Is there anyone here that would like to address items 13 and 14?
Craig Lloyd Companies, 3130 West 57th Street, Suite 112. And I'm just here to answer some questions. We're the ones that are doing the DeKalb lofts, which is part of this TIF district, and we're also the ones that have what we call Tri-State Creamery and Larson Square, which is part of the old TIF.
Any questions for our friend Craig? Craig, Erica did such a good job in front of you. We're going to let you off the hook tonight.
Yeah, I need all the help I can get. Thanks.
Would there be anyone else here that would like to address items 13 or 14? If not, I would entertain a motion on item number 13.
Mr. Chair, just as clarification, item 13 is for the project boundary, and item 14 is for the plan, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation that we approve item 13 on the project boundary for TIF District 12.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Item 13 passes. I would entertain a motion for item number 14.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to approve item 14.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on item number 14? All in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Item 14 passes. Item number 15.
Erica Beck again with the Community Development Department. What we've brought before you with this project specifically is an opportunity to create a TIF district boundary that we're referring to as TIF 13. This project actually was just announced several weeks ago by Raven Industries. Their intent is to complete roughly $17 million in improvements to their existing facilities in their downtown campus, including moving or relocating the manufacturing component out of their existing downtown structures into the additional space that they own throughout Sioux Falls. And then the intent would be that this would serve as their main headquarters, administration headquarters in downtown. And so some of the images that we have to show you include those improvements and what that project will look like when it's complete. But what we found is that when we started discussing the project with Raven Industries, there were a number of different public improvements that we anticipated could be pursued as part of a TIF district if we were to create one in this general vicinity. And so what we're working on with them is the creation of a district where we can take advantage of the increment that's being generated as a result of this project being completed and utilize that to do public improvements such as River Greenway projects, the South Terrace that you'll see in this picture, for example, and facade easements on the existing historic structures on the site. And so what you are being asked to consider tonight is the creation of the district boundary with the intent that we would bring the plan forward to you for review in December. Once the boundary is created, we'll know the assessed valuation of the district, the base valuation, and then we'll be working with the project manager with regard to the improvements that are being made and how that's going to impact the assessed valuation when the project is completed.
Questions for Erica? Erica, wait just a second.
I'm ready.
When I read about this project, they talked about doing this over a 5-year period.
Mm-hmm.
Is that TIF in place from the start of that project, or when exactly could they or you, the city, take advantage of that? Can you do that when you want to do it, or is there a time frame that that needs to be done?
Well, what we're proposing is that we create the district immediately, which sets the base assessed valuation of the district. The project manager is still working on all of the details of the project in terms of what the phases are exactly going to include. What we do is we look at those phases and we say that at the end of each phase, it's going to increase the assessed valuation by X number of dollars. And then that essentially is the increment that we have to utilize. And so right now what we're doing is we're looking at that in greater detail because they haven't necessarily identified and pinpointed all the improvements in terms of what phase they're going to happen. And so the initial thought was that there would be 3 phases. The first phase would include the majority of the work to the exterior of the building and then 2 or 3 floors on the interior of the building. But that has yet to be determined yet. And so there are a number of other improvements, more public-oriented improvements like the South Terrace and additional site work to what you'll see is the parking in between their structures where we actually, the city owns a recreation easement. And so some of those things are being talked about right now in terms of including them in phase 1 versus phase 3. But what we're asking is that those improvements be completed within the first 5 years that the district is created, because that's when we really have the opportunity to complete the improvements, generate that increased assessed valuation, and really utilize the increment, the remainder of the district.
The increment.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So is it once the TIF boundaries are created, that 5-year clock starts ticking, and
Correct.
anything expended after 5 years then would not be eligible for
Correct.
TIF reimbursement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions for Erica? Thank you, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else here that would like to address item number 15? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 15.
We have a motion. Would there be a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Item 15 passes. Item number 16. Jeff, good evening.
Good evening. I'll give you a quick overview of the sign study group report that we completed. Over the last year, from September to April, we had 12 public meetings that were advertised and information was shared on the city's website. We generally advertise to about 25 people by email and 15 people turned out at every one of our meetings. The results of those meetings were that we decided to proceed forward and try to address the sign code that really hasn't had a major update in a significant amount of time. The purpose and intent is that the signs should be appropriately scaled and distributed. And again, I think the public understands this part. Neither so small that they fail to communicate, nor so large that they dominate. So that's what we were trying to do as we put this proposal together. Overall, there were many issues and things that we were trying to address. They were all coming out of Shape Sioux Falls. Shape Sioux Falls is the city's comprehensive plan, and prior to putting that document together, we did a visual preference survey, and we asked the public on a scale of +5 and -5, plus being good, minus being poor, what did they like or not like. And again, these are some examples of types of signs the public either supports or doesn't support. We also need to look at content-based signage. What we don't want to do is tell a business that they can't put different words or language on their sign. It's the First Amendment right that anybody can put words on their sign. We can dictate when, how, and where the signs can be. We can't tell McDonald's that they can put McDonald's on there or hamburgers. They could put cheeseburgers or Coke, whatever they want, on their signs. Again, some examples of what we're trying to do is we're trying to address building signage, freestanding signage, and identification signage. Identification signage is a big issue right now with all types of development, commercial, industrial, institutional land, and how they identify their larger campuses. Joint tenant signs are something new for the City of Sioux Falls. It gets into a little bit of language about being required to be on your site. But again, as these campuses, offices, or commercial developments get larger, signs need to be out on the street frontage, but they may not be on your property that you own. Again, people want to own their land, but not necessarily common ground. So we've created a context to go and have joint tenant signs out along the roadway and identify everything that's within that development. This becomes the main emphasis that's spent the most of our time over the last year is temporary signs. Temporary signs have some regulations and restrictions on them right now, but generally they're exempt from sign permits. And again, going back to the purpose and intent, we want them enough so that they advertise, but not so much that they dominate. What's happened over time is temporary signs, per these examples, are starting to dominate the landscape. But they're not necessarily regulated. And again, every industry, every stakeholder, every citizen has their own opinion about signage and specifically temporary sign, so that's where we really get bogged down as we kind of proceed forward. The issue that we're at right now in the sign report and moving forward is that what we'd like to do is count the temporary signs as part of your sign allowance. If it's on the building, it's part of your building signage. If it's not, if it's standing alone, it's part of your freestanding signs. Again, that offends some people, that impacts some people, but it's fair and equitable that everybody gets the same amount of signage. Window signs are also temporary signs, and again, you can see how they're used in various contexts. And again, that's pretty easy to explain. A window sign is a sign that's on a window. Banners are another big controversial issue. Currently, they're not allowed in the City of Sioux Falls to be on poles. However, everybody knows that they currently are, but they're illegal. But how do we address that as we proceed forward? Again, putting it all back in context, where can you have signs and how can you do signs? Signs can be on a freestanding sign, as this one shows, and there's a banner there on the bottom. But according to our definitions, what's temporary? The definition of banners is that they should only advertise special events, grand openings, or seasonal sales. Again, we're dictating content there where we'd have to go and read each one of these signs to find out if it's appropriate or not. We don't want to get into that. We just would say, you get so much signage, you put it on your freestanding, we're not going to tell you what you can put on there. Again, my little side tongue-in-cheek comment at the bottom is NFL ticket a special event. That's how you would have to define it, because we can only allow special events. The maybe last slide, temporary boulevard signs is also a very controversial issue. You can kind of see here open houses, real estate signs, garage sale signs. We've had water bed stores that list all their stuff in the boulevard. Again, how do you regulate that to have fair and equitable to everybody? Either nobody gets them in the temporary boulevard, or everybody can have signs in the boulevard. So that's kind of where we've been. We've made this proposal at least once, as you see it here, to City Council a year and a half ago, to allow them, based on these maximum dimensions, maximum placement of time, and making people accountable for taking them down. It did not get passed through City Council. That's the sign study group report in summary. In the end, the study group would look at the ordinances and see how they're revised to actually put it into law, and that would come back before this body before going on to City Council.
Jeff, what you're doing is giving us an update on this committee.
Correct. Informational only.
Just informational only,
Correct.
but this is still a work in progress.
Correct. Your chairperson, Jesse Schmidt, was on this committee, so if you have any questions, you can ask Jesse.
Oh, Jesse, I appreciate that, Jeff. Can't wait to see her.
Mr. Chair, Jeff, this was focused only on on-premise signage?
Correct. We did discuss off-premise signs, but we updated that recently, so we did not spend time on off-premise signage. Off-premise signage is, again, as I mentioned, anything that's not on your premise. Typically, they're billboards. People understand billboards are off-premise, and you can put anything on there. So it was on-premise signage.
When the ordinance is, or this goes to council to become ordinance, will it include both on and off-premise signage?
Yes, in the long run it will, because we're updating, as you're well aware, all the ordinances for landscaping, parking, on-premise, so it will all be taken into consideration, but what we're proposing to go through right now is just on-premise. Well, I don't even know. On-premise currently has probably about 25 pages, and the drafts have been between 25 and 50 pages of law. Thank you.
I think I speak for the commission. We can hardly wait to see that final report.
I'm going to go through each and every page.
Thank you, Jeff. If there be no further business for the commission tonight, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Motion passes.